Hey again, Deadpool negative. Yeah, I know the shoulder is still weird looking. I'm back with. I've talked before on this channel about my love for Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel, specifically the original Chris Claremont run, and how she was, and what Kurt Busiek did with her in Avengers, and how she was used or misused, or you know I used to be really angry about what Brian Reed did during the Civil War storyline, and other things he did. Um, and to her credit, Kelly Sue DeConnick seemed to like Carol Danvers more than Brian Reed did, but her storylines were more boring. The character, despite starring in a $1 billion movie, isn't doing well sales wise. According to my retailer, the sales for the Alyssa Wong written Captain Marvel series, which I kind of gave up on it because I could not understand what was happening at the end of issue 3. And of course, the story shifted to the love story between the construct and the thief girl that Carol was paired with. I couldn't understand what was going on because I thought that was a construct, not a real person. Um, Marvel, despite throwing, people. I recently finished the last trade of the Kelly Thompson run, and I have to say, Kelly Thompson can write a good story, but she can also be incredibly bland most of the time. And when I got to the end of the run, I was like, I feel like I know more about Hazmat, where Hazmat is as a character, than I do about Carol Danvers. I think the problem is people don't want to go back to the original series and look at what the character was about. Like Kelly Sue DeConnick just decided to focus on the Air Force stuff and not the alcoholism, which I thought was interesting, or the fact that she wanted to be a writer. I always thought that was an angle worth pursuing. I mean, she was a reporter, but then she wrote novels. Um, but I think with Margaret Stoll's Life of Captain Marvel, things really got discombobulated. First of all, Captain Marvel is getting too powerful. Like she's Superman level powerful. Like they make jokes about it. It's like a focus of the Thompson run. Like Thompson pretty much ignores stuff even she set up. So there'll be suspense in the story and danger to Carol. Um, I would argue that Torrin Grunbeck's annual was probably the best issue of that for 50 chapter run. Um, but Margaret Stoll, obviously under orders of Marvel Editorial, in 2019 did the Life of Captain Marvel, which basically completely rewrote her into Superman. She was not just, her mother was a Cree warrior. Her real name was Carol. Ha ha. I mean, really, did they think to themselves as they were looking at this script? And I think this was done because they thought the movie was going to go one way, and in fact, it went another. It just had the original origin, only made Marvel a woman. Okay. Um, but I just think the problem is the character is off putting to a lot of people. I don't find her off putting, but you can go on the internet and find people who feel that way, or people who are the Carol core, but they don't actually seem to read the books. They just draw the character. It's like I remember Graham McMillan said, "This character has a huge following on Tumblr." Apparently, that was a thing that Marvel like, oh, if it's on Tumblr, it must mean sales, and that wasn't true. Um, I always hated the Rainbow Bright redesign. I still think it was a joke on. Uh, well, I thought it was a joke, but I don't think it was in the end about on Jamie McKelvey's part. Um, it looks better in the movies because it's armor, but in the comics, it just kind of looks like she's trying to like hang out with Vivian Westwood. I don't know. Like, what is is she in Sergeant Pepper's Lonely? Is she in Sergeant Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band? That jacket, I mean, I know female audiences like this sort of thing, and but I'm just not connecting with it. But I like the character. She's noble, can be noble and kind, and she fought with her own struggles, but she overcame them. And I think what Marvel needs to do is power her down and just write her as a nicer person. Have her say sorry for her behavior in the Civil War. Have someone actually say, "You don't get up. You get up because you say fuck you." And she's like, "Well, that makes me sound like a bitch." You know, I used to think Miss DeConnick was half serious with that. After 2020, I'm not so sure. Anyway, but what we got here, what looks like a miniseries with a massive continuity patch. And who better to do the massive continuity patch than Paul Jenkins, the guy who co-wrote Origin with Joe Quesada and Bill Jemas. I didn't like Origin. I don't think that was primarily Jenkins' fault. But my primary issue with Origin is, like, if you're going to do that, you have to put in everything. You have to hire Chris Claremont to do it. You should hire Peter David to do it, or hire Frank Thierry to do it. Not Paul Jenkins, the guy who gave us Inhumans. Like, he didn't feel like a Wolverine writer, and by the end of that, he still didn't feel like a Wolverine writer. And it's telling that he's only done one Wolverine project ever since then. So, like, I mean, I've liked Jenkins has had a rough go of late. If you've, like, you know, he's had a lot of legal troubles. A friend of mine has actually been testifying on his behalf. So it's nice to see Marvel throwing him some work, bringing back the Sentry again. I mean, I'm not a fan of the Sentry, but here I think he's got a good. This issue is weird. She's sitting, like, they don't really establish it correctly, but she's standing outside of a church, waiting to. The dialogue establishes it later. Like, she's standing outside a church, afraid to go in. She wants to go to an AA meeting. She doesn't know anyone in there. And then, boom, she gets a memory fragment. Like, oh, does everything she know is wrong? And it's primarily about her father being verbally abusive to her. You know, like, which he, in the original comics, he wasn't abusive. He just had a way of thinking regarding women that was very shitty. Best way to put it. I think if you read issue 14 of the Claremont run, it's actually one of my favorite things Claremont had ever done. The story about that. Iron Man, who's got his arm in a sling for some reason, he invites her to. He's about to go to the church. Instead, invites her for a cup of coffee. So they discuss what's going on, and I kind of like this because it doesn't spell out. They just they even say alcoholism. They say, I don't know anyone in there. Hey, let's just I'm kidding. We're not getting a drink. We're getting coffee. I thought it was a very smart way of writing the dialogue. So she's dealing with, and like, all of a sudden the Wreckers have Kree technology. You know, like, it's a nice little action sequence. Decently drawn by Lucas Werneck, though he seems really interested in, like, making sure there's no backgrounds during his fight scenes, just speed lines. And there's a really, really sad part where she's, and you know, one of the things I really disliked about the life of Captain Marvel is, like, they introduced this idea that Carol's mother is a Kree warrior, and then they immediately kill her off. Like, come on. You know, it's like, it's trying to just dump the misery on, and it doesn't work. Didn't work for me, I should say. And there she's talking to her mother's grave, trying to figure out why didn't you stand up for me? Why'd you let my father treat me like this? I mean, I think there's also scenes with Spider-Woman. I just can't stand Spider-Woman. You know, probably because she's one of Bendis's favored ones, and that I've never been able to forgive the character for that. Also, just most of her runs have been terrible. Go back to the original 50 issue run, and the Carla Pacheco stuff's not too bad. But there's an interesting line. I don't know why you don't go back to being a reporter, or let's go on a road trip. I think that's interesting. What I think Jenkins is trying to do is establish an identity for the character. It ends on a kind of a lame cliffhanger, like a new threat or an old threat. Like the design of the villain shown is, well, it's better than that Daredevil one. But like, I was going back to this comic, I became more optimistic about what Jenkins is trying to do here. Like, obviously, he's probably being directed by editorial to do something with Carol Danvers' past to fix it. I don't need it. I don't think it needs much fixing other than, surprise, this was all a trick by an alien. But, you know, that's not how Marvel works. Anyway, we'll talk about the artwork. I think it's the combination of Lucas Werneck's art and Rod Fernandes' colors really work. They make it look light and fun, but like I actually thought the real sad scene in the graveyard was excellent. And I'm trying to figure if DNVR means something that is in the original continuity, but who knows? Like, at least there's a good chance he's actually read the actual old issues, unlike some writers. It's all good. It's set up, but it's good setup. It's set up that made me confident that it's going to go somewhere interesting, and I want to find out what happens next. I hold a slight hope this might offer Return of the Black costume, because the Rainbow Bright costume has never worked in the comic. In the movie, it looks cool because it looks like armor. In the comics, it looks like Jamie McKelvey just drew Rainbow Bright. And the irony of one of Warren Ellis's pals wanting to make a character cover themselves up is kind of funny. Anyway, that's enough for me. I would give Dark Past definite recommend, and I will talk to you later. Bye.